In this video I will show you how to replace the left front CV axle and drive axle seal on 2006 through 2010 Dodge Ram 1500 4x4 trucks. These steps are similar on 2002 through 2005 Dodge Ram 1500 4x4 trucks. Park the truck on a level surface, activate the emergency brake and place blocks in front and behind the rear wheels. Raise the front of the truck to a suitable height with a hydraulic jack and place jack stands under the chassis as shown in the image for safety. Remove the wheel lug nuts with an impact gun and a 22mm socket. Then remove the two bolts holding the brake caliper using a ratchet and a 21mm socket. Detach the brake caliper and hang it from the upper control arm using string or wire to keep it from hanging from the brake hose. Remove the brake disc by pulling it out with clean hands to avoid contaminating the braking surface. Locate the connector and the cable of the ABS sensor that is attached behind the mudguard and unhook it by pulling it with your hand. Press in on the red tab with a small flat blade screwdriver while simultaneously depressing the tab on the connector and pulling the connector toward you to disconnect it. Next, remove the nut that holds the drive shaft using an impact tool and a 35mm socket. Remove the steering tie rod end lock nut holding pin using needle nose pliers. Loosen the nut that holds the steering tie rod end attached to the steering knuckle. Separate the knuckle by applying upward pressure with a bar and tapping the knuckle lightly with a brass hammer to break the tie rod end apart. Remove the nut completely and disconnect the tie rod. Loosen the nut on the upper ball joint using a ratchet and a 22mm socket, then pry up with a bar and hit the knuckle with a copper hammer near where the two parts meet to free the ball joint. Once the ball joint has been separated, remove the ball joint nut completely. Next, separate the drive shaft from the steering stem by tapping the tip of the arm lightly with a hammer. Then loosen the lower ball joint nut with a ratchet and a 24mm socket and proceed to separate the ball joint from the steering knuckle in a similar manner to the one you used to disconnect the upper ball joint and proceed to remove the steering knuckle completely. To remove the axle, use a bar and pry out with a quick movement to disengage it. In case the intermediate shaft is stuck, use a flathead screwdriver and remove the locking ring and using the tip of a bar apply outward force to loosen it. It is recommended to replace the CV axle seal with a new one. To remove it, insert a flat blade screwdriver between the metal seal ring and the front differential, pry out around the perimeter of the seal to pry it apart and remove it completely. Once the seal is removed, clean the surface where the seal is installed before installing the new seal. Proceed to install the new seal by lightly tapping the perimeter of the seal with a hammer until it is seated all the way, and preferably, use a socket that will fit over the metal part of the seal and tap the socket with a hammer until the new seal has been installed all the way in. Lubricate the intermediate shaft with differential oil and proceed to install it by placing the rubber seal and the locking rings as shown in the image. Proceed to install the new drive shaft, gently guiding it in a horizontal position towards the inside of the front differential. Once the retaining ring has made contact with the differential, use a rubber mallet to finish installing the drive shaft. Before installing the remaining components, make sure that the new CV axle has been installed correctly by pulling the metal part of the inner CV joint that is connected to the differential. If the CV axle feels securely attached, proceed to install the remaining components in the reverse order to which they were removed, making sure that all the remaining components, including the wheel lug nuts, are tightened to the correct specifications, and, if possible, install new holding nuts on both ball joints. That's how simple it is to replace the left front CV axle on 2006 to 2010 Dodge Ram 1500 4x4 trucks.